question to each of you, who I would like to provide with 2 minutes of time to answer that question, is as you sit here representing various private sector groups, and in your interactions with members of your private sector groups, are you of the view that the opportunities that currently exist in the oil and gas sector is clear in the minds of businesses in Guyana? Timothy, I will pass the mic over to you.
I'd like the answer in one word.
That helps.
No. I don't think that the businesses that are related, especially with the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, are fully aware of all the opportunities and the list of all the opportunities that are available to the private sector. There's still a lot of gray areas and a lot of, I should say, unawareness to the opportunities and that are available in the oil and gas sector, and what those businesses can do to raise their capacity to make themselves competitive in the industry.
I also would concur with the view, as I'm representing the GSMA, so yes, I would concur that a lot of our companies in the GSMA are still trying to develop a full understanding of how the industry is structured and how the industry functions and what we need to do to build our capability. We are aware on the surface that there are quite a number of opportunities, but I know that for companies to raise the bar to the levels that are required, it's an enormous challenge. Forums like these, I think, can help to raise the awareness, and we need to have much more discussions that can be helpful in developing an understanding. Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much. Now, from the perspective of the private sector, right, you need to understand there are different levels of businesses. One is that you already have the establishment businesses, those who are already operating. They don't have oil and gas experience as yet, but then they have the new entrants and new aspirants. They don't know anything. So how do you get to respond to a requirement to supply the sector if you are out of the loop? So the first thing is that we have to get people in the loop, which is to get them to register with the center. That is one. Two is that you need to make sure that you know what is out there. Then you start planning to see, where am I going to get my niche? Now, there are a lot of things. The young lady just presented a whole list of things, but you need the specifics. Because when you get the specifics, then you say, okay, this is my niche. I'm going to build on this niche. I'm going to be the best at it so that I can up my game. I can build my capacity, make sure I get my certifications so that I have a foot in the door. Once I'm in the door, I start to bid. When I bid, I have my chances are improved. So the information coming to the private sector, it needs to be open. You need to have more specifics. As I was just talking to the people there. Now, on the FPSO is a rig on a ship. So that rig on that ship is a three-phase system, I understand. It separates the water, the oil, and then you have the other things, right? Each one of those things have a whole lot of valves, a whole lot of pumps. They have pipes. They have everything that you need to operate that FPSO, and that's just one aspect of it. We need to know what those things are. You don't want it to be coming from one set of international suppliers only. That means the international suppliers, only them will be successful. There will be no place for the Guyanese company. So we need that level of detail.
Maybe it might be a little better for me to share some of my experiences, because talking about expectations of everyone is a little bit difficult. What I would say from my perspective, this is a new business. And certainly I can, speaking from my own company in particular, I mean, it is still, it is a big hill to climb in terms of the standards and so on that are required. It requires a lot of effort. I mean, we've been spending, now we're going through ISO 9001, and it is a challenge to deal with your business on a day-to-day basis and take on board these things, but it is a requirement. The spin-off benefit from it, though, is that following through with doing the ISO process is our businesses are better run. Our business is being run better, our business is performing better. So this is not only something that we can see that we have to do to get into the oil and gas supply chain. It is something that we should be doing as companies so we can be better overall performers and put ourselves in the best position to be part of it. I think from looking at it now, I think it's still early days. I mean, first of all, I think when the Liza 1 well was found, we were just looking at one FPSO. And you know, if we look at the MNR presentation earlier, they were talking about just a few employees on that one FPSO on the offshore. Now we're talking about 3 FPSOs, so the whole dynamic is changing going forward. So to where it's now not going to be just a few people, it's going to be a series of developments, not over just the next 2 years, but over the next 5 years. All of a sudden, it's not just a one-off. It's looking like we'll have an industry. It's a long learning curve in this business. I know in the years ago when we started supplying, for instance, OMI, it took us quite a while, a year or two, before we really got an understanding of what their expectations were. And that was actually a simpler supply chain without quite the same level of HSE and quality standards that were required. I think we also have to be reasonable also in our expectations going forward. Yes, there could be better clarity. I mean, I can't argue that. But I think the environment has been very dynamic going forward, and it's gonna take a while before there's any clarity.
We have the Tourism and Hospitality Association. I would say that we are excited. We look forward to have all the expats coming to Guyana, because the tourism industry is basically still in its infancy stage after 3 decades. And so we are looking forward to this with excitement. But there are a number of members in the fall from areas in the Rupununi that their lodges are inaccessible. So this is a challenge that is faced, and we are hoping to support with the advent of oil to get those, and then so that the tourism industry can really blossom.
As representatives of the various business communities, what are your organizations, entities, groups doing to raise awareness? Often we ask the question of what specifics can government or the operator or some other entity provide so that businesses can understand the sector. But from the groups that are represented here, what are you doing to ensure your members are aware of what is going on? And for example, take the advantage of, for instance, registering on the portal, the Center for Local Business Development portal, where it all begins.
Most of the business community already know that they have to go and register. I think a lot of them are already registered with the portal. So let's move past that one. Secondly, I have in front of me here a listing from SBM Offshore. And the clarity is here. The clarity is that they need a whole lot of services, from meet and greet, manpower, logistics, real estate, office maintenance, phone services, medical care, laboratory services, testing and calibration of equipment. They need technical consultation services like electrical instrumentation. They need communication technology in terms of VSAT and navigation, marine equipment, catering services, medical onshore and offshore, industrial gases. They need nitrogen foraging and pressure testing. They need maintenance, inspection, recertification, lifeboats. They need painters. I'm sure we can paint. Scaffolding services, I'm sure we can do that. Rope access, dive and ROV services, laser measurement and scanning services, environmental measurement and recording and reporting, ship chandling. So that is one subcontractor, one of the major ones. So you have a whole host of things there. Noble just had a similar thing. It was out there, people bid for those things. But Chris, when we learn of this, for us to get here, we have to partner. And I've been talking about this since 2017 already, and a lot of people have partnered with firms in Canada, Trinidad, and the US, so that they can be able to buy in the know-how. Because if you do organic growth to try to build your business, which some people are doing, it will be slow, and you will not benefit from first movers advantage. And if you're not benefiting from the first movers advantage, when somebody else win a contract of a particular nature, when you come in after, you have to compete with that person who's already locked into the system already. So it's even difficult to win a bid after you've lost it. Although, if your game is up, you stand a good chance, but you're at a disadvantage.
I'm speaking specifically here to medium and small businesses. The reason being that I'm a small business owner. And by way of our now and sagacity, we receive queries almost every day from businesses. Initially, it came from businesses overseas. If we want to do business in Guyana, what do we do? Where do we go? Interestingly, since GPEX, a lot of those queries have been coming from local businesses. They still aren't clear in their heads exactly how they go about benefiting from this. And for me, I'm asking if there is a responsibility on the part of the business groups first and foremost to ensure that your members, those who you represent, understand.
I think the GSMA is doing as much as it can in the initial stages to ensure that our membership are informed. We as an organization, we are still going through that process of learning and trying to get an understanding of how the industry functions, how it's structured. But we have commenced a process by discussing with our membership the importance of improving their businesses. Certification, accreditation are important factors to allow a company to participate. A lot of companies in Guyana has not been accustomed to that type of culture. We have been accustomed to a homogeneous culture where we just operate our businesses in a manner that did not reflect a lot of international requirements, international requirements. I think now what ISO will do for a lot of us is not only make us capable to service the oil industry, but to be competitive from a more global perspective. And I think that is good. So the industry in itself is creating a new culture in Guyana, where there's a stronger sense of awareness in terms of ISO certification and the importance and the need for that type of certification to guarantee a much more competitive perspective in terms of how businesses operate.
We have done quite a few things in relation to that. One of the things, I think our president has signed the MOU in Canada that links a lot of the businesses that we have with partnerships. If they want, we have mixes that we introduce members of the oil, should I say, the oil fraternity to the regular membership of the chamber. We have now been planning to do a business development forum where businesses, the focus of our forum that we're planning and we want to have in the end of April is to somebody now starting a business can come in to our forum and they will learn how to grow their business, how to register their business first, how to grow their business, all the steps that they take through the local market to the end result to export that business, whether it be a service, whether it be a product. But we want you to be able to come to the forum and see the entire process and get that process. So you wouldn't have to ask the question, how do I do business in Guyana? The idea is, you'll be able to come to the chamber and you'll see, this is the laws of Guyana, this is how I register my business, this is how I incorporate my business, what are the options there, what are the options in terms of trading, what is available, whether it's food and drug department, whether it's the bureau standards, right, and all the different stages going right up to big businesses in capital markets, banking, credit facilities, all of those things we want to be able to throw out there to our membership to boost them in terms of how they can do business.
Everything that is required out offshore and the operations there have to channel through the shore-based facility once it's fully operational, right? So just say, for example, when Technip comes, they had to put in all the umbilicals and everything, and they had to hook up their Christmas tree. The Christmas tree weighs about 42 to 47 tons. Means you have to get a crane with that capability. Who supplies the crane? Who fixes the crane? Who services the crane? Who changes movable parts? Where does that part come from? Who certified the crane? Right? You have to get slings. Andrew's talking about slings. Where does those slings come from? Right now all comes out of Houston. Can we manufacture the slings right in Trinidad? Could we build a manufacturing facility here? Who buys those slings? That is a hand pass-hand operation, but you have to be certified in some areas to make sure you qualify as a supplier. So those are the level of details our private sector need. We don't have that detail, and you cannot expect people to come and throw that detail on you. You as a private sector have to come looking for it. If you're hungry enough, you gotta reach out and find it. Nobody owes us anything. So we have to make sure that we fight for it, right? So those are some of the things. The other part of it is offshore. Simple things like tank cleaning. When they take out the cement, when they bring it back, it gotta be clean. It gotta be cleaned by a certified person. It gotta be done in an environment by a company that is certified to do so. Right now it goes to Trinidad. So they do that there. It takes them over 24 hours to go there. It takes you 9 hours from out there to here. It's cheaper to do it here, but we need people to understand that that is the service that's needed. What do you do with the waste that comes off of the boats out there? You got to go somewhere. You need a permit. So all of these things, there's a whole host of things. It's so broad, but we need to understand what are those businesses. And we need to know, okay, this is my business. Can I migrate here? What will it cost me to migrate my business to fix it so that it's all supplier compliant? And that is what you need to do. That is where our businesses in the private sector need to get into the know. And that's what we're seeing all the time.
Part of the role of the association should be to manage expectations of their membership. I mean, again, and I don't mean to repeat it, there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, or to a certain extent unreasonable expectations in terms of what should be expected in terms of local content. In the sense that, you know, just hearing the discussions early on and talking about the expressions of interest. The expressions of interest by companies here, when they send out expressions of interest, there's very little information there in terms of what the standards are or what the actual equipment is and so on for the initial expression of interest. That initial expression of interest is basically a filter for when they ask you some initial questions to start to filter companies to see whether they're in a position to then be in a position to bid. You know, we went through again the whole thing with Noble just now, that the bid just closed yesterday. What happened, and I'm sharing an actual experience. We had one company who was talking to us who was a supplier for one of the products on the bid, and they're actually the local distributor. They were trying to bid, and then they came to the part in terms of the HSC requirements and the HSC policy and realized that they would limit their ability to bid for it, and then they came back to us. First of all, they told us one price, and then they came back to us with a lower price afterwards because they thought that we would be in a better position to be able to have an opportunity to win that tender. Now, part of the thing is, you know, companies here also have to learn to cooperate. Guyanese companies as a whole, we don't differentiate between cooperation and competition. Sometimes you can do both at the same time. And we're not going to climb this hill in terms of local content and development capacity locally if we try to do everything ourselves. I mean, I've heard it said several times when people have been approached, about oil and gas and maybe doing joint ventures. Everybody says, well, what can you do? What's your core competence? Oh, I can do everything. Let's be reasonable. It's a difficult hill to climb. You need to focus on your core competence and your core areas to be in the best position to supply this industry. Other than that, you're going to overstretch yourself. Right? The other thing is people tend to be looking at, we need to get a contract with Exxon. Exxon's actually going to be a small part of the whole pie. You have your Technip, you have your Saipem, you have the rest. Then it's going to drive an industry, basically develop the market for quality products and services going forward. Because contractors to those contractors now can't afford their equipment to be breaking down. So they can't afford to buy used equipment. They have to buy new equipment. They have to buy new parts. They're not going to buy knockoff parts from a lot of the stores, and we know that is pretty prevalent down here. Yeah. Okay? They're not going to be able to do that because the equipment has to have availability to be able to service their customers. So there's going to be a lot of knock-on opportunities, and it's also for a lot of companies to decide whether you want to take on the headache of fulfilling all these requirements. Maybe you'll make more money doing what you do already, being a subcontractor to a subcontractor. So you need to be clear in who you're going to supply and what you're willing or what your capacity is to do.
Tourism is a big thing. I have been at the Marriott for several weeks over the last several months with various seminars and events, and every single person coming into this country, staying at the Marriott, the Texas, wherever. They want to know what can we do in Guyana. They're here for a seminar, maybe on the last day, they leave the next day after. They want to go places, they want to know about this country, but that information is not necessarily readily available. How do we address that?
Currently, we are looking at partnering with Marriott and Pexons, because those are the most of the hotels that the expats will stay at, to give them the information. But I mentioned earlier that we have some limitations, especially for the interior lodges, in terms of accessibility, because it takes time for people to get there, and then a lot of the strips the aircraft doesn't goes into, then they have to travel by road. It takes time, and that's the huge challenge that the tourism industry is facing in this area. But if you could enjoy me just for a few minutes, I know you said to keep it short. But what I want to say is that in Guyana, I see tourism as a new frontier for Guyana. And Guyanese as a whole haven't come to grips with that as yet. Tourism, the United Nations has said that tourism is the third largest contributor. You have chemical and fuels. Those are the two. Tourism is the third largest. So we need to come to understand what Guyana needs, as I said before. We have gone through 3 decades, and tourism is still in its infancy. What tourism needs is an injection and a boost. Let us look at what the United Arab Emirates did. They have built a tourism industry in the desert, and it has 3 flights a day out of JFK, filled planes, double-decker Airbus. That's going to that place. 12 hours, 35 minutes you get there, and you get there in comfort. You come to Guyana, it's a hassle to get here, first of all. And when you get here, it's expensive to get around. And that is the hindrance that is facing the tourism industry in Guyana. What we need is to use this, and I made a point also that tourism and oil meshes perfectly. And we use the example again with the United Arab Emirates, where the oil resources were used to develop the tourism industry. And as they said earlier, that you want an industry that is sustainable. Tourism is sustainable. Oil is an extractive industry. Oil is a capital industry. Tourism is a labor-intensive industry. Tourism, hospitality, and service. That is a labor-intensive industry. So it complements each other. And this is where I see that Guyana needs to really put the oil resources. And we don't have to go and build the world's largest tower like in Dubai. We don't have to go and create a garden where they have an Airbus covered in flowers. These are all things that were built to attract people to that country. They have opened the Grand Mosque, which is a sanctuary place, to visitors. And people go there, and there I said, why do I want to go to see the mosque? I said, you're being amazed. They said, this is the premier attraction. When you go there, it's cladded with white marble, it's put on, it's massive. And these things all were built because they were building a sustainable industry. Guyana don't need to look. We have the world's largest waterfall, the St. John Fall, Kaichur. We have the jewel of the crown right here. We don't need to build anything. What we need to make Guyana is accessible. And I need to see the oil resources channel. This is the time for tourism for Guyana.
Is there any focus on the need to divert oil revenue to other key sectors, maybe such as tourism, for example? Because down the road, I suspect that aids in averting the Dutch disease.
Yes. Well, Christopher, what we have done as a private sector, I think all the bodies are saying the same thing, is that the monies need to go to infrastructure, but different kind of infrastructure, right? So you have roads, bridges, ports, ferry system, the fire service, the police, utility, power. You need ICT, you need proper bandwidth, you need it to be throughout the country. You need primary education, all of the schools need to be refitted. You need medical services, at least primary health care, they need to be refitted. But when you have this infrastructure, it operates with a system. So you have to get the right people to. So you need a university, a separate school, that are able to churn out the kind of people that will be able to go into these industry and work with the level of standard that they are required to deliver. So that conversation is happening. But I want to divert back, apart from spin-off with tourism and the other industry, back into oil and gas proper. We have about 6 to 7 feet of draft, right? And we have these ports at the end. I mean, Andrew and them, they could talk a lot about this thing. But you need a facility. I don't want to call it a deep water harbor. I can be one right here. But once you get about 9 feet draft, the kind of vessels that you're going to be using can come here. So it makes it easier. So we don't have to go to neighboring Trinidad and so on. It can be right here. It's a huge investment. But it is something that is central to the development of the local industry. It is central to it. So we need to look at that with some level of seriousness. Because we don't have any one of them that have about 9 feet drop. Maybe I stand corrected. 9 meters, sorry. 9 meters. So that is what's needed. Because the ships are bigger. The kind of ships that they require as support vessels out there, they are getting bigger and bigger. So for them to dock here, load and offload, you need that.
In exploring many of these business opportunities, such as building a large shore base, ensuring that the river, wherever it's located, is adequate enough to facilitate large vessels, and outside of that tapping into other opportunities in the sector, there is an understanding, I believe, that there are going to be instances where Guyanese companies may not possess the requisite skills. So there would have always been the issue of joint ventures and partnering with other companies. At the same time, there are concerns being expressed by the local business community about foreign companies coming into the country and more or less taking over, quote unquote. How do you find a balance between that A? And when it comes to joint ventures, is there a mechanism in place either from the private sector as a whole, maybe entities like Go Invest, to advise entrepreneurs on how you go about getting into joint ventures? What do you look for? What should you look for? What is the process? I know, for example, that this system exists in other countries. Canada, for example, who I am in a joint venture with a person from that country, said that they have a system in place in Newfoundland in which there is an entity, I think it's Noya, that guides businesses to the extent of providing, if not direct legal advice, pointing them in the direction where they can go and sit with a lawyer and they can get from that attorney the advice that they need to enter into a joint venture that is ultimately beneficial to them. Do we have that system here, and how do we get to that place?
I think I'll answer that. We do have a couple of joint ventures. Our company is not only in oil and gas, but probably has about 6 or 7 joint ventures that we've entered in. And I think the more practical exercise is basically, and this is where sometimes I think Guyana is a cooperative republic that doesn't really cooperate amongst, we don't cooperate amongst ourselves. We don't share experiences with each other. So how can we listen and learn? So we have to continuously seek to learn. You know, hope, the word hope is defined as hearing other people's experiences, and we seem to preclude ourselves from benefiting from that. I think talk within the associations, those who have experiences of entering into joint ventures, they share their experiences openly so other people can learn from that experience. One thing I would strongly suggest is don't just wait for people coming down here and go and enter into joint ventures with them. Go and see them in their home country. Go visit their countries. Talk to them. Use the whatever benefits you can use to get more information on them. For instance, the Canadian High Commission, for anyone coming down here on trade missions, and I can't speak for the others because I'm not certain, but I'm sure it should be consistent, is the companies have to reach a certain standard in terms of how they do business, how they're managed, and everything else to be part of trade missions, to basically reflect if their high commissions or embassies are supporting them, they would have to reflect at least a decent standard. So you have a better chance dealing with companies that come through that. But I mean, the most important thing for me from my experiences, and joint ventures have come out of almost nothing with us,
is you have to go and visit them, see if the math adds up. Obviously, do a proper agreement, but I will say this, if you have to fall back on your agreement, I think the joint venture is pretty much, if the black and white agreement, the joint venture is over.
They're saying when you have the agreement and you put it in a drawer, if you have to go and check that agreement, the joint venture is over. If you had to go and check the verbiage. But just want to go back to the point you're talking about foreigners taking over. I don't think that we should have that philosophy that foreigners taking over. Listen, the banking sector, there's some from the banks here. The banking sector is suffering from huge default loans in certain sectors. Right now, oil and gas is a sure bet. Financing of projects will be an easy appraisal system for them. So even if local people want to get into a business, once they have a good partner, you will find that you will get financing from the commercial banks, and there's a lot to go wrong. So it's not that the banks have a little capital to share among plenty people, because you're getting problems with rice, sugar loans, real estate loans, construction loans. So oil and gas is a sure thing. So it's an easier conversation, sorry. Huh?
You have mentioned in your, you mentioned repeatedly the need for a needs assessment to be done to determine what are the key opportunities that exist in the industry. We know of some of these opportunities when they come out in these adverts, whether it's from Blue Oil or SBM Offshore or whichever company. Has a comprehensive needs assessment been done in collaboration with the operator for the private sector to have a clear understanding of A, what is expected and when, and B, when.
Yeah.
So we know based on the various stages and phases of the development process, this is what is needed, and our members need to get on board and build capacity to benefit.
Good. So let me answer that question. Now, there's gray areas. Now, the only thing you get is when the tenders come out of this particular service. So let me just give a little example. 2 years from now, you're going to need huge laydown facility. Anybody knows that? Everything that operates out there based on Exxon's inventory policy, they have to have it on shore. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be in a particular kind of warehouse. The people then that man the warehouse need to be trained and certified, have the right protective clothing wearing. So you have a whole host of things that needs to be made clear. So when it's made clear, from today you say, okay, you see this business here? I want to get into this business, but I got to build a warehouse. It takes me 12, 13 months to build a warehouse. By the time I fashion it with the relevant staffing and systems to make it run properly, the 2 years is up. Then is when I will go and say, okay, I've seen this thing 2 years ago, but I made myself ready for it. But you need that kind of clarity, because it's not only when you see the codes, then you hustle to get an expression, then you're hustling to build system. It can't work like that. It shouldn't work like that. We should know what is coming so that we can be able to say, okay, you know, these are the areas that we can benefit from. And coming back to my initial point in my speech this morning, and again, you need to understand your niche. Don't spread yourself thin, don't bite off too much you can chew. Get an area that you know you can do, and you concentrate on building it and be the best at it, flawless at it. That is the key.
If you would indulge us, I know that some of this information would have been out there in terms of the various stages of development. This is what might be some of the things that are needed here in Guyana, whether it's from SBM Offshore, affiliate, and other companies. But can you summarize and give us a brief rundown of what would be some of the key things that the local business community could look for and try to benefit from?
So as I sat here and I listened, I heard a lot of consistent themes, and one of which is that there's a real eagerness and a desire for a forecasting of such of what are the needs going to be. You know, have you done the needs assessment, and can you forecast out what the needs are going to be? And the quick answer to that is no. I don't have an easy crystal ball answer to that. However, we are all learning, and we are all getting a better picture of what that looks like in Guyana. And we have done a needs assessment, and Natasha alluded to it in her presentation from the Center for Local Business Development, and that needs assessment was the basis for which we founded the center, and that's how we knew how to focus the center. And so we did do the needs assessment. We've actually done 2 in the last 3 years. And we look for, when we did that, what's the low-hanging fruit, for lack of a better word, and where are the areas where we can quickly capitalize and convert things to local content? And then there was a matrix, right? And then there's one quadrant which is probably never going to materialize in Guyana because it doesn't make financial economic sense to invest in this heavy equipment to become experts in something. And so we continue to relook at that. Natasha's right. So there might be an opportunity to work with the center to make the results of that needs assessment available. That might help give a better picture of the background. It's not going to be the crystal ball, here's where you need to go invest, here's where you need to go invest in to be successful. Andrew was very on point on message, and a lot of this is, and in there too, of, you got to be hungry, got to seek it out, got to find the opportunities. But what I'll add to that is that it is a very long-term industry. And so you're right, the 2-year period might be up, but then you're up for the next bid. And in this industry, we rebid. We look for 3 years. 5 is very rare these days.
Okay.
We look to rebid these contracts every few years. And so just because you win the first one does not mean you're winning the second one, or for the next FPSO, or the next, or the trickle on. So you keep your eye out for the tenders that are coming, what piques your interest, and get ready for when we rebid that in 3 years. And then again, and then again, and then when the other subcontractor needs similar things. And you can start to see themes along safety standards and procurement standards, basic business principles you can improve upon. If you want to support not just our industry, but I'm going to just take a moment to go back to a bit onto the tourism point of how we spend the revenue. And the revenue, who's going to build all these roads and bridges and schools and where the teachers going to be? There's a lot of capacity and jobs and investment, I think, that needs to take place outside of our sector to get ready for how to spend the money when it comes in.
The gap analysis, I think it would be something that I would like to say and not just, and again, can we be a cooperative republic where the private sector as a whole maybe gets together to look at getting it done, approaching some of the donor agencies to look at a gap analysis from the private sector side. I think that's one thing. And then I'd also like to suggest maybe going forward. I was part of this local content masterclass, which is 4 days in December. And I came out of that realizing really how little I knew about this thing, local content. It is a huge subject. You cannot, and there's no one size fits all. But what I do believe in fervently is basically a process that should give the best result, which is basically we as a private, I can't go and say and make demands and say I want this in terms of local content or that in terms of local content. What I can do, I think, more realistically, is raise where our concerns are in a forum, and what I would suggest is the private sector as a whole, government, operating, and maybe the prime contractors, with what I would term expert facilitation. So people who know about local content, who can supply answers. And you basically sit down and say, okay, these are our concerns. How can we address these that could theoretically satisfy us? Because if we go now and the government comes out with a local content policy, we're back in the old thing of pointing fingers at each other. And it becomes a senseless exercise. And quite honestly, I'm tired of it. I'd like to really be part of it. If we're part of this process about being part of coming up with a local content policy, then on the government side, we can't turn around and then start pointing fingers at them and say, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. And the other thing is, it is something then that over time can be adapted. It starts this discussion, it starts this sharing of information, it starts this better clarity in local content, and it gives us something that we hold each other accountable for going forward. I think for me at least, I would suggest this as a better way of dealing with the whole local content issue. And it's flexible, it can be adapted over time, right? It's not something that's fixed from now into perpetuity. I think it's a more healthy way of approaching this whole concept. And from the very beginning, we're part of it. And obviously, part of doing this gap analysis, obviously on the private sector side, would help, would then inform that discussion.
Training and awareness through the local Center for Business Development. With the center expanding its programs and the type of programs it's offering can serve to create a better understanding of what the needs and requirements are. To expect that we can just get a list of what the needs are and that's good enough, I think we have to adopt the kind of programs that will help us to better understand the whole functionality of the industry from a technical point of view. Because as was actually said earlier, there are river pumps and valves out there, but pumps and valves have types and functionality. And if the awareness is established as to what the various unique serviceable items are, by way of gaining the understanding of through training, I think it would help us to better appreciate the areas that we can focus on as individuals.
Let us face the facts. I said before, oil, it's not a labor-intensive industry. We will not have massive employment in Guyana supporting the oil industry. So let's look at the tourism industry, which will not only create massive employment, but it will create massive employment for the people who cannot be employed by the oil industry. The single mothers, a cane cutter, could be employed by the tourism industry. So let that be our focus. Thank you.
I would like to open the floor to a few minutes of questions or concerns.
We talked about oil and gas when we looked at the program, but essentially we focus on a single operator or set of operators because you've got SOS and SANA. What's interesting, the comments that have come today from the perspective of the contractor have come largely from one member of the contractor. So you're not quite certain whether these policies reflect S and SANA. That's one of the issues. We should bear in mind as well that based on the production we're talking about and the resources and reserves, we're talking about 21 years if you use say 300 days a year, or 17 years if you use 365. So we've got to look at whatever we do in that context. We have not had any discussion. Now, petroleum does not come without gas, and the agreement speaks of both associated gas and non-associated gas. We are left completely uninformed about the implications for us as private sector players as to what that means, and certainly as a country. In relation to us as members of the private sector, we have not addressed this question of taxation and whether it's reasonable to give contractors, subcontractors, and their foreign expatriate employees blanket tax exemptions. Well, in respect of employees, it's under 180 days. It means for us in the private sector, as our citizens, that the taxes for the country will have to be borne, apart from the royalty and other forms of withholding tax. The taxes will have to be borne by the private sector. Now, they take risk, of course, but so do we. So do the manufacturing companies in here. They don't get such benefits. So I think it's something that probably needs to be considered. I want to raise this issue. I know it came already about, Chris. The question of a refinery. And it was thrown aside because we were told, at that stage we were talking of 100,000 barrels a day. The economics of the refinery have changed dramatically since that day when we were at Marian's and we had that presentation. This is a substantial adjustment. Now, if we want to really have that transformation in that 17 or 21 years, if we don't bring much of that production on shore, we will have lost a signal opportunity that will not come back. We have not heard any discussion today either on, because we talk about the price of petroleum, is the manufacturing sector, is the domestic sector going to be faced with the same kind of high oil prices if we want that transformation. These are important elements that we must consider if we truly want that visionary development we talk about the UAE and all those places. If we want real change, then we have to think so very differently. And so I do believe that we need more discussion like this. We have to confront the government. The government has got to give us explanation. They can't come and say, well, we didn't know. We have local content requirement in the law. So, and as we talk about law, the judicial system, is our judicial system receptive, our immigration system, is it receptive to this kind of international operation that we're facing? Now I can tell you, on Friday and Saturday, the bench and the bar, the judges, magistrates, lawyers, will be holding a 2-day seminar. I don't know if the private sector has been invited. I would suggest the private sector should have a presence there. Because there are serious implications of how court will interpret contracts, etc. What are these contracts in terms of international? There's a lot to be done. We can't say we tired of the discussion. It's got to take place. This is a good start. We've had lots of starts. But we've got to have some kind of phase thing that before 2020, before Forest Soil, we should have addressed every single problem, including the serious problems that Arjun identified today, deficient EIA, inadequate consultation, and those matters.
So, Mr. Ram, one of the things I came across in my research is the monetization of these gas. And I found that Norway did it right because they recognized that it was something that they could have made money on. So, based on the information I have, if you have a natural gas plant, it can reduce your energy costs nationally. So I believe that the monetization of this gas is critical to development for Guyana, because you'll get I understand this gas is a dream find. They have little amount of sulfur, little amount of water. Moving on to the issue, I'll talk about that and the refinery, the same thing. I shared a view with you that the refinery model, the financial model, was done with small production revenue, thereby the net present value showed up as a negative. I asked to test those numbers, it was never given to me, but it was done in the early stage. Now, if you are aware with the oil and gas geophysical testing that they do, if you find something like Liza 1, the Liza field, which is what they call an elephant, you know there is something around the area. And they went by and seven discoveries so far. Exxon did that, right? So the numbers now change. We just saw Kimberly talking about 500 barrels by 2025, somewhere around there. So the initial stages, maybe we can look back at this refinery, because it does. This is the crux of the matter, because the spin-off of the petroleum industry is that you have all of these other oils, all these other lubricants, tires, plastic, and a whole host of other things that you can have to build an economy properly. But you don't want to make a wrong decision with a refinery. I believe the capital cost was around $5 billion, and it takes 60 months minimum to build by Indian contractors. So you have to look at that, right? So in terms of the refinery, I think that conversation needs to be continuous, because the dynamics are very fluid with exploration. And again, we're only talking about Exxon here. We still have Tullow, you have Anadarko, I think Chevron is going to come very soon, you have Total. So you have other people, and CGX, you have other people, and Repsol. You have other people that are exploring too. So when all of those things kick in, the sum effects of it could reflect well in a financial model. You know, we can see, doing a feasibility study, you need a particular kind of skill set to do it, and you need particular data to do it.
And is there a willingness for public-private partnership?
I'm thinking so. Listen, at the end of the day, it will benefit the private sector in Guyana and the economy as a whole. So there's a huge stake involved here. Now, I just want to come back on the issue of taxation that Mr. Ram raised, about the contractor having tax waivers. The subcontractors, when you bid for their goods, you have to pay duty, you have to include that in your bid. when you supply them the quotation, and they will in turn bill Exxon for that. So you have to, when you're doing work for the subcontractor, you have to take consideration of all taxes that you have to pay. But again, that subcontractor, let's say Saipem Noble or one of those SBM, they will eventually bill back Exxon for those costs. So there is that cycle there. All right, so just want to make that clear.
As the operator of Stafford Block, we're fully aligned with HESC and external positions that we're taking on these various topics. We have regular reviews of what we say as the operating body in country, speaking to us frequently. On the other topics that Bill touched on just then, I would say natural gas is obviously a topic of great importance. We've not made a NAG discovery, which is a non-associated natural gas discovery. What we found, and it's unfortunate stating there are very large oil fields, which are the most valuable form of discovery and typically the most desirable types of discovery. Those oil fields, we need to ensure that we are maximising the recovery of the oil. So as you'll see in all of the agreements that we released, the primary use of natural gas from those fields is for re-injection into the reservoir to maximise the production of crude oil. And so that's going to be our priority use for natural gas in the fields that we're going to move on to develop. But we also understand the importance of natural gas for potentially transforming elements of Guyanese economy. So what we're doing is we're in this conversation. It's 50% of my role to see if we can commercialise limited volumes of associated natural gas from Lisa Phase 1. The ministers have talked about 30 to 50 MCFD, and I'm working closely with the ministries to see if that 30 to 50 MCFD will support a 200-kilometre pipeline that will land somewhere on the shore of Guyana and be consumed in a natural gas power station. That only makes sense for all parties if it's desirable to the government of Guyana, but also it only makes sense if it lowers the electricity price and if it lowers the CO2 emissions dramatically of the state of Guyana, which we believe that it could do. So that's a priority project for us, and we're working with government. That's natural gas. And that's all the gas we have available to commercialise today. As we learn more about our new discoveries, maybe further volumes will become available, and the pipeline will have sufficient size that if we add the pipeline, we'll be able to deliver more volumes to shore to be consumed in industry or manufacturing or something along those lines. We don't have those volumes today. We're still studying our new discoveries. On refinery, we've long agreed with the government's view that we don't think a refinery, we would not invest in a refinery in Guyana. There is global overcapacity in the refining sector. There are very significantly underutilised refineries in this immediate region. Aruba and Trinidad, they're very famously underutilised facilities. And typically you can get a better commercial deal of running your volumes through somebody else's brownfield depreciated asset than a new build greenfield investment of your own. But that's not a decision for us to make. Everybody will get to make their own decisions with their share of crude. We will make our decisions for how we sell our crude. The state will have its decisions for how it sells its share of crude. What we would say is that we personally would not invest in a refinery. We struggle to see in our models how that is economic. There are many considerations. Overcapacity is a big one. Oil prices have improved. The other significant one is the lack of deep draft harbour from Guyana. Maybe eventually there will be one. But until you can export in larger vessel sizes than ports here today can accommodate, we don't believe that those product cargoes will compete successfully in the Caribbean basin market. And that's a function of geography. So geography, the fact that you're blessed with so many rivers, and maybe an investment can be made to fix that in the future. But today they're not investments that we personally as a company would seek to make. So that's a little bit of clarity.
In addition to local content, the local manufacturing environment will need additional support to really develop capability and capacity. And it's something that we will continue to speak to the state about, the policymakers about, that the manufacturing sector over the years has been plagued with a reef of challenges. And if we can have additional support, it will help us to grow and develop capability. So I think that that's an area that we'll have ongoing discussions with our local government.
Well, we are out of time, so I would like to ask the members of the panel to give some closing remarks. And from the standpoint of, there is always a view that many of these seminars and workshops and so on are held routinely, but what comes out of it? I would like for you to provide us, from your personal standpoint, with at least one key takeaway from today that you think that we can build on. For me, I think your question about the window of opportunity to respond to an expression of interest was short or small, but I believe that was adequately addressed in terms of companies can maybe indicate they have an interest and maybe ask for some more time. I know that this would have been an issue from the chapter in various private sector groups. So that is something that we can take from here and share with the other members of the private sector and businesses.
From the Chamber's perspective, I think that we take away from this is that the need for capacity building. It's clear and it's evident. We need proper training facilities, training schools, and to build the capacity, not just to have the low-level workers, but we need higher level, medium, going up in the corporate ladder to get our people, locals, into those positions. And the only way to do that is to bring schools here to build capacity, similar to what the center is doing, but on a more formal level that we can be certified and to take the opportunity to get those jobs, or even our businesses can employ those people in our personal capacities, not just in the oil and gas sector, but several other sectors.
I think first, for me, the PSC must be commended for taking the opportunity, as they said, at very short notice, for putting on such a seminar. On every occasion I've attended the various seminars organized by the various organizations, there's something new that is learned. And I think that as long as we continue to have the conversation, good quality conversation, new ideas, additional areas will be brought to bear, and we'll be able to have beneficial outcomes. Because as we communicate, we hear more from various persons, and that in itself can help to bring the conversation to the quality and level that will allow for an upward position.
What I would like to see on behalf of the Private Sector Commission is that there is a hunger and there is an interest. And with that hunger and that interest, I think Guyana and Guyanese people will pursue it. There's no doubt that Guyanese, if they see money up the road, they're gonna go looking for it. That is a basic thing with Guyanese people. So if oil and gas is here, we're gonna beat bushes, we're gonna hunt, we're gonna make sure we get a piece of the pie. Right? So that is what we are as a people. That is the instinctive behavior of Guyanese people. So I'm sure that if not tomorrow, next year, the other year from now, we're gonna get something. When we do that in numbers, then it's gonna show up and it's gonna grow our economy, grow businesses, and they're gonna employ people, right? And I think that is what we are about. We just want to make sure that our people benefit from their resources. Right? Thank you very much.
Simply put, two things. First of all, try to educate yourselves as much as possible so we make informed decisions for ourselves and for our country going forward. Second thing is, there is a benefit from association. It's something that I've seen that's lacking in Guyana, and to me it basically limits the development of Guyana. We don't share information. We don't cooperate. We don't share resources. We got a big hill to climb to be part of in building capacity, to be in a position to supply and benefit from this industry, and we're not going to do it on our own. We're going to have to do it either working together locally and also working with partnerships alongside. It's not going to happen if we just, I just play my part of the thing and I just do my thing. It's going to limit us. So that's my biggest takeaway.
If I may, you asked for a personal perspective, so if you're going to allow me to put on my right cap. The analysis was made earlier with gold, and Mr. McLean mentioned OMI. I want to say to Exxon, this is an example from OMI and what came out of OMI. And Lorraine basically was born from the existence of OMI. we got, because they needed to fly their expats and the executives in and out of OMI and at the moment's notice. And so they had these two captains who was ready for the challenge, but they didn't have equity. And you know, the banks need equity in order for them to finance. OMI provided the financing. And from 2 persons, today we employ over 200, and our employment cost for last year was over 360 million Guyanese dollars. So I know you must to the US. But this is the kind of thing that I would want to see Exxon doing. Because these things that OMI has done, and Mariah will continue to live on. I want to also to say to you just briefly that this is the first event we had here, and excuse the imperfection, but you know, there's a saying that it's better to make baby steps of imperfection rather than trying to make a leap of perfection.